The FDA says it wants to simplify how Americans stay up to date on COVID-19 booster vaccinations. The agency says it wants to is in the process, and it wants it to be more like a flu shot moving forward. That would mean assessing what COVID strains are circulating in June and then preparing a dose for everybody in the fall. The FDA's Vaccines Advisory Committee is set to meet on Thursday to talk more about this plan, so we want to prepare you for that. Joining us this morning, Dr. Stephen Thomas. He's an infectious diseases physician and director of the Global Health Institute at Upstate University in Syracuse, New York. He also is coordinating principal investigator for the Pfizer and biotech COVID vaccine efficacy trial. So you're quite qualified to be discussing this with us this morning. Thank you for that. What questions will the FDA panel be looking to answer in deciding on an annual shot?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So I see three questions. The first is going to be, do they agree that there should be a single kind of synchronized vaccine with the same components for both the primary immunization series as well as the boosters? The second would be, do they agree with the proposal on how those components are going to be identified and selected? And then the third would be the schedule in which those boosters would be given. And as you mentioned, the proposal right now is annually. So those are the three questions I think they're going to try to tackle.
And how long will it take to answer those questions, the process of actually bringing a shot to market for a yearly dose?
Yeah, so those meetings are a lot of robust discussion, and the voting occurs at that moment. There have been occasions when they've asked for different questions to be asked or additional questions to be asked, but you should know by the end of their deliberations how this advisory committee feels. And again, as you mentioned, it's one thing to make a decision. It's another thing to operationalize that decision, especially at a national level. And I think that the details from the agency on how that would be done are a little less clear.
Do you have any idea on the timing of a process like that? Would we be talking a year from now, longer?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that they would want this to be implemented, the process of surveillance and identifying what the strain should be this summer, so summer of 23, with the rollout of annual boosters in the fall of 23. That's my guess. And this is one of the reasons why we have invested in these platform vaccine technologies like messenger RNA or viral vectored vaccines, is so that when new information comes to light, they can quickly pivot, change the ingredients of the vaccine, and get the manufacturing in place and get it rolled out.
We're seeing a lot of vaccine fatigue when it comes to the COVID boosters and just shots in general, definitely during the pandemic. I think one question people who don't like to get shots, can't we just put it all in one? Is there an option to put a COVID vaccine into a flu shot?
Yeah, I think everything is on the table, and we've done this with other diseases, and I think that is an ultimate goal. It's been pretty high paced over the last 2 years of trying to just stay ahead of the current variants of concern that have been circulating and changing. But I think that is an ultimate goal, is to try to have maybe a respiratory virus annual vaccine or seasonal vaccine.
How do you advise people, Dr. Thomas, who do have vaccine fatigue or they are concerned about the risks of a vaccine? What do you tell them at this stage?
Yeah, so, it really depends on who you're talking to. And I think this is going to be part of the discussion on Thursday is, who is really benefiting most from the boosters, and specifically the bivalent boosters. And so what I try to do is I try to look at the individual. I lay out what their risk of getting infected is. I look at their risk of what of a bad outcome if they do get infected. So are they over 50 years of age? Are they over 65? Do they have pre-existing medical problems, et cetera? And then we look at the safety profile of those vaccines. And for the high-risk group, I think the data is pretty clear that the bivalent vaccine, the benefits clearly outweigh the risks.
If they do decide to go with an annual shot, would there be certain groups of the population, some of those that you're talking about, that may still need an additional booster shot?
Yeah, so one of the details of the proposal is who's going to need 2 boosters versus who's going to need 1 booster, and on an annual basis. And that is defined by, again, some of the things you mentioned. What's the age of the person? What is their history of having been previously vaccinated or previously infected? And then, what is, again, their overall risk of a bad outcome if they get infected because of obesity or pregnancy, or they have pre-existing heart or lung disease or diabetes.
Life has gotten back on track, but we are still dealing with this pandemic and coming up with solutions to eventually rid ourselves of some of the dangers of this virus are key. Dr. Stephen Thomas, thank you for your time, your perspective is always good to see you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.